tragic thing would happen 21 years ago. But without further ado, let's get into it. So, the first thing I want to talk about is at the IGN Expo this past weekend, there were a lot of things that were revealed, a lot of upcoming movies, TV shows, and stuff like that. But one of the things that was revealed, which is kind of out of left field, but I think piqued some interest, is a Captain America and Black Panther World War II team up. Now, it's not too out of left field, I should say, because Captain America and Black Panther have teamed up a lot in the comics. Black Panther trusts Captain America a lot. One of the few people that Black Panther actually trusts, and they teamed up and everything and fought bad guys together. But the fact that it's going to be set in World War II is going to be, I think, it's going to be pretty interesting. So, judging by the fact that it's World War II, my guess is that it's going to be King T'Challa's father, in the Black Panther suit and everything, alongside Captain America, who, of course, the hero during World War II, ended up being frozen and then thawed out in the modern day. But yeah, so I think that's going to be a pretty interesting game to play. Like I said, kind of surprising, kind of out of left field, but I want to see where it goes and not to miss something about it. The next thing I want to talk about, and it's something that I think is a pretty interesting question because of what happened over like the past week or so, is will the Elite go to WWE? So when I say the Elite, what I mean is Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. And they're like the core members of the Elite. Other people like Cody Rhodes and Hangman Adam Page have been associated with them, but that's like the core Elite is Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Will they be making their way to WWE? And the reason I say this has been talked about is because it was brought up during the fight that happened after the media scrum after AEW's All Out last Sunday, where Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks got in a confrontation with CM Punk when the fight broke out. They were saying, they threatened to leave AEW and go to WWE because of CM Punk's comments that he made. I talked about it a bit more when I talked about not only the situation but also AEW coming off the Olivia Avenue. You could check out that video, but I feel like will the Elite go to WWE? It's possible. Well, if this year's proven anything at all, especially in WWE's space, is that anything can happen. And people said Cody Rhodes wouldn't ever show up in WWE again. Here he is. They said Triple H isn't going to be in power in WWE without Vince McMahon dying. Yet here we are. Or so a lot can happen in the world of pro wrestling, and it's one of the reasons why I love pro wrestling, because it's so unpredictable. You never truly know what's going to happen. And I'm sure it's a possibility that the Elite could show up in WWE. I'm very sure they've been on Triple H's radar. In fact, I'm very positive they have been. Some of the biggest stars in the company, not total strangers to WWE. Kenny Omega was in WWE Developmental before he became like the megastar that he is. He said he hated it, and I guess made it his mission throughout the years to go to pretty much everywhere that wasn't WWE. And as far as I know, I think it was Matt Jackson who was on an episode of SmackDown back in 2010, I believe, where he pretty much got squashed by a talent on regular programming on SmackDown, like an established superstar. He just got squashed and everything, had to do the job. Or I think it was a tag team of some sort, I'm not sure, but yeah, so if they do end up going to WWE, it'll be a re-debut where they'll be presented as Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, and they'll bring up how they've been all over the world. The thing is, with WWE and the continuity, a lot of people say they don't bring up people's accomplishments outside WWE. I disagree. I say they do, only when it's like convenient for them. Like, for example, with Cody Rhodes, they bring up how he wrestled elsewhere and that he was gone for so long and spent a lot of time reinventing himself before coming back to WWE. They did the same with Drew McIntyre when he came back in 2017. So when it's convenient for them and when it goes to the story they're trying to tell, they will. But other than that, yeah, you'll be hard pressed to find them bringing stuff up, especially in AEW. WWE didn't outright say, "Hey, Cody Rhodes is in AEW," because that's competition. there's a couple things that probably prevent them from doing so. The first is the situation going on right now. I think it's still a very hot button topic. A lot of people are still talking about it. So Triple H bringing them in with all this heat on them because of what they did. Heat's on pretty much everybody. CM Punk and Ace Steel and Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks because of the fight that happened and everything. And there's still a lot of heat on them. So Triple H will likely wait until a lot of heat dies down and not as much hate is back on them to bring them in. But for now, it's still a relatively hot thing going on right now, and not in a good way. But the other thing is that the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega's contracts don't expire until 2024. So last year they ended up signing extensions because their contracts were about to run out. But and even back then, some people were saying their contracts were about to run out. Are they leaving AEW? But that appeared to be not the case. They signed extensions, so they're staying with AEW for now. And the extensions run out in 2024. So we'll have to see in 2 years whether or not they will actually stay with AEW or end up jumping ship. Of course, a lot could happen in that amount of time. And it's crazy to think that in 2024, there's a chance that AEW can lose four of the biggest talents, not just the elite Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, but also MJF, because his contract expires in 2024, and there's a possibility he could be on his way out of the company. He's expressed some interest in going to WWE, but I think, thankfully, for the most part, at least for now, things will smooth over with him and Tony Khan, and MJF's probably going to be sticking around, at least for now. But yeah, other than that, let me know in the comments below. Do you want to see Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks appear in WWE? Honestly, I would like to mainly see who they wrestle against. Plus, with Kenny Omega potentially not wrestling after his next injury, at least that's what he said. Whether or not that's true remains to be seen. But there's not a whole lot of dream matches. Well, there is some dream matches, I should say, that I still want to see before Kenny Omega decides to hang up the boots. And the Young Bucks versus the Usos would definitely be a really solid match, as well as the Young Bucks versus the New Day. And honestly, the Elite versus the New Day as a whole, hopefully, if Big E is healthy enough in time, I think that would be a really solid, really fun, awesome match. But next thing I want to talk about is matches that are hard to get right. Match types, I should say, that are hard to get right. And two of them come to mind, and both of them kind of have the same sort of theme going on. The first is the Iron Man match, which I reviewed not so long ago when I reviewed Sasha Banks versus Bayley at NXT TakeOver Respect. If you haven't already, go check out that video. But the Iron Man match, mainly because it's a time limit type match, or a time type match, I should say, where if you have a 30-minute Iron Man match, you essentially have to fill those 30 minutes. The match doesn't end until the 30 minutes are up. So you essentially have to fill in those 30 minutes until the big moment, where in like the last 5 or the last 2 minutes of the match, there's the big ending where there's like a submission hold that's locked in, or they're going to tab right before time expires, and they do end up tabbing, or they hold on until time expires, or in the last 5 minutes where it's like a pin or something, and then the other person is trying to like catch up because now the score is either they're tied up or they're down by a point. So that I think is pretty tricky to pull off, because while you're waiting for that spot, you essentially have to fill up the other like 25 to 28 minutes of time in the match. So you have a lot of time to fill. And thankfully, there are a lot of people, such as like Sasha Banks and Bayley, or in the case of Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler at Extreme Rules 2018, you essentially have to fill in that time and make it work. And if you have wrestlers who can do that, they're able to pull it off really well. The other thing, and a kind of similar theme of pretty much waiting for a time, is like stuff like the NXT UK Heritage Cup tournament with like the round system and everything. And I know the round system is a staple of British wrestling, where they have 3 different rounds, 3 different timed rounds, and they gotta wrestle in there. But I think where the issues of that comes up is essentially it's not like boxing or like UFC where the things you can do are a bit more limited, where you can do like punches and kicks and grapples and stuff like that. With wrestling, there's more freedom and more moves you have to pull off in order to do that, and that can get broken up because time expired, and sometimes it doesn't really work out. Oh, and sometimes the round system can be a little weird, but there are those who have pulled it off, especially those who wrestled in that style before. And from what I remember hearing, NXT UK, which of course rest in peace to them because they are no longer a thing, making the way for NXT Europe. But from what I heard, they actually pulled it off really well for the NXT UK Heritage Cup. But yeah, so being able to pull off those types of matches where you gotta wait for moments and pretty much draw the time and everything and fill the time, I think those are hard to pull off because it essentially comes down to waiting, and there's significant moments throughout to keep things interesting and everything, and I think that's where the beauty of it comes in, where you have the moments where they're not like the big moment at the end that you're waiting for, but there are moments that still keep the action going and still make everything look good in that regard. So for those who have pulled that off, all the props in the world to you, and I imagine it's not easy to do because you're essentially waiting for that. But the next thing I want to talk about is the best subscription services. So mainly like TV services. So that's stuff like Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, I believe it's called now, HBO Max, and Disney Plus, stuff like that, or like Paramount Plus, stuff like that. So, but what's the best TV subscription service? And my answer to that, I think, is probably it depends on what you're looking for. So with Netflix, they've got a pretty big library of movies, but they've also got some obscure movies, which is nice, some stuff you've never really heard of before. And I think that's another one of the reasons why I love Netflix, because the movies and TV shows you hadn't really heard of before. Or not all of them good, but a lot of stuff you haven't really heard of. But and then there's Hulu, which has some of that stuff, but also has live TV as well. So you can just flip to a channel. Then there's Disney Plus, which is all Disney stuff, movies, TV shows, special series, stuff like that. And I think that's pretty cool as well. But then you also have what was the other one I mentioned? HBO Max, which has some good movies, TV shows, documentaries, and it also has some original shows as well, which is pretty cool. So, like I said, it depends on what you're looking for. I really like Hulu mainly for the live TV and stuff, as well as movies. They got a good movie library, even though some of them you have to use other services for anyway in order to view. But I do like the live TV. That's how I watch like AEW Dynamite or Raw or SmackDown or NXT. I use it through there. So it depends on what you're looking for, and it depends on what you want out of a subscription service. And the price points are also a thing to keep in mind, right? Because Netflix just went up, and sometimes a lot of their libraries aren't really the money. But yeah, so let me know in the comments below what's your favorite TV subscription service. But the next thing I want to talk about is what's next for Roman Reigns. What is next for Roman Reigns? I'm not entirely sure, because he beat Drew McIntyre at Clash of the Castle, which I was surprised about. But it looks like they're going to keep the title on him, and it looks like now the bloodline is getting more focused with Solo Sikoa being added, called up from NXT, and then added to the bloodline. So they're keeping that going, and the ascension between Sami Zayn and Jey Uso is still something going on. But also, Roman is taking a bit of a hiatus, which is a bit annoying because that means neither Raw nor SmackDown will have world title, or world champions, I should say, or world title and world champions, because Roman has them both. So we're going to be without a world champion on either show for a little bit, which kind of sucks. But in the meantime, I guess this is the time for contenders to really establish themselves. We got some names being brought back in, such as Braun Strowman and Karrion Kross, who that's not always the case. Some of them don't have the best interest in mind. Some of them are sneaky